What is up, bros? Me, Josh here. In today's video, we're jumping into the third Italian premium ship to hit World of Warships. Well, that's coming to World of Warships, and it's the Duca Degli Abruzzi. Now, I probably slaughtered the name, so I'm just going to call it the Abruzzi for short. And it's now the second cruiser, third overall ship. Of course, we have the Caesar, the Tier 5 battleship. This is the second overall cruiser from the Italian Navy line that is hitting World of Warships. Now, keep in mind, this is still work in progress, so things are subject to change, and it could be a completely different ship when it's finally released. So, second Italian cruiser after the Duca D'Aosta. And if you guys know me, I'm not the biggest fan of this ship as a quote-unquote competitive cruiser, but you can have a lot of fun in this ship, and it kind of brought a unique kind of play style. But I'm seeing kind of this pattern to the Italian ships of having mediocre range for cruisers when it comes to mid-tiers. The Duca having one of the lowest firing ranges at 14 kilometers, literally one of the lowest, I think, besides the Leander at tier 6. But very, very low trajectory, very, very punishing if you get it in the right situations, but still low firing range. Now, you get to the Abruzzi at tier 7, which is kind of, as you get into the higher tiers, it gets much more competitive, and the things that start to shine a little bit are stealth and range for cruisers, because you want to get away from these ships as much as possible. And the Abruzzi, again, doesn't have that good of range. So is this the kind of niche of the Italian ships? They don't have this very good range. They have very long range torpedoes at 12 kilometers, just like the Duca did, very, very long torpedoes, but very, very low main battery range, which I'm not the biggest fan of for cruisers, because the closer you're going to get to stuff, of course, you can punish them more, but you will also get punished more. Now, one of the upsides is the Duca does have the Duca, as well as the Abruzzi, which is called the Abruzzi for short. Abruzzi, it does have a good reload time, one of the fastest for tier 7s outside of the Atlanta and the Flint. So 7.5 second reload, which is actually pretty dang fast. But let's dive into this ship and just kind of compare it to its counterparts at tier 7, then we'll dive into some gameplay as well. Hit points, 32,500. That's pretty comparable. Let's kind of compare it to the other tier 7s. Tier 7 cruisers. So kind of the Miyoko is going to rock a little bit more. Pensacola still a little bit more, but 32,000, it's all right, honestly. One, you're going to kind of have one of the lower detectabilities, so you can get in and out of this thing. Downside is having a slow health pool with a lower main battery range kind of adds up to being not the best situation. Armor, it's a cruiser. You're not going to get too much crazy armor. One thing that is kind of noticeable is it does have pretty high main battery armor mounts, or mount armor, so your guns will get knocked out not as much as, let's say, like even the Miyoko can get knocked out a decent amount. So I guess that's one kind of upside. Pretty normal Citadel plating, 100 millimeters, and kind of just a normal cruiser. Nothing to really stand out and kind of make you go, wow, this thing can really tank. 18% torpedo protection, pretty standard for this. But this is the gun. So with the Duca D'Aosta at tier 6, you had this really, really low trajectory AP, and that was kind of its big selling point. One of the most punishing AP. If you were going to get some ship into a sailing broadside, you were going to absolutely smoke that thing off the planet. This, though, you get a lower trajectory HE other than AP, and when I was kind of playing this ship, it was kind of interesting because I wish I was like in a different ship in a lot of situations. When I was playing this, I was like, man, it's not quite as good as the Shores, which is the Russian tier 7. It's not quite as good as some other stuff. But it is definitely noticeable, the trajectory of the HE over the AP, but it left me wanting something else, wanting something more for this ship when I was playing it. But I guess the guns are still good. It's just like, okay, it's trying to like kind of mix some ships together a little bit. And I was like, I wish I was in the Shores when I was playing this, because it's just a bit more, I don't know, more accurate, better range, that kind of stuff with these guns. And again, I'm going to harp on this range a decent amount. So main battery, though, 180 degree turn radius at 23.4. Maximum dispersion was 137, which the dispersion is not too bad. Again, though, another thing about the Italian line is it seems like the HE chance is going to be one of the lowest of all lines, 9%, and I believe that is with Demo Expert. Just let me check it really quick. That is, so base of 7%, which is actually pretty brutal for cruisers. If you guys know, World of Warships is currently an HE meta, and that's just how it is. So you want your cruisers to be doing as much fire damage and lighting fires as much as possible. So 7% base, 9% with the Demolition Expert is pretty low. I mean, compare it to, let's say, like the Miyoko, you're rocking 19, but of course the reload is almost twice as much. Pensacola, kind of same thing. You're comparing it to these 15. It is twice as much, but the fire chance is twice as much. Now, compared to something like the Shores, Now the Shores is very similar, 8 seconds, so just a little bit slower of reload, but 13 seconds. So that's without demo, so 15 with it. So you're double the fire chance as well, and as long you almost have 2 kilometers farther range. So it's kind of what you got to compare it to a little bit. Diving into the torpedoes though, extremely long range torpedoes of 12 kilometers, some of the longest in the game up until tier 7. I think that it is the Duca and this have the longest torpedoes, I believe, up until kind of the German ships, high tiers, and as well as a Shima. So 12 kilometers, they're very far, but man, are they slow. 51 knots, and they do a decent amount of damage at 13, just a little bit over 13,000. So reload time 71 seconds. They're all right. It's You'll use them. They're nice to throw out there. Just be careful because they're super slow, just kind of like the Sims. AA defense didn't really impress me too much. It's all right. This is with an AFT captain, I believe the module as well for some extra range. So 44 rating, max range, 26 damage, a little bit closer to 5.1, 46, just kind of the peak. 14 really close, and then 5. So your main AA is going to be kicking in at 5 kilometers. You do get some extra, a little almost 6, but you're not going to be shredding the. You're not going to be getting clear skies in the ship, but it doesn't hurt. Maneuverability, 35 knots. The ship is pretty quick, as well as the turning radius and rudder shift are pretty decent. 9.5. This is one of the lower, I think, at tier 7. So comparing it to like the Pensacola, which you do out detect that. Again with the Miyoko, you do out detect the Miyoko, so you are relatively stealthy at 9.5. Even comparing it to like even the Belfast, but you're almost at Belfast level, which is pretty dang good. So you are stealthy for the size of ship you are. So I guess that is something to kind of look forward to. When I am running this captain, though, this is what I'm running. This is my Duca captain as well. Priority target, I think, is pretty basic. Extra marksmanship is just nice to have. You could always switch it out for adrenaline rush. I'm waiting for 19 points to do that. Grabbing the extra fire, I think you just need that. It's very, very nice. Detectability, concealment is what you really want. AFT I grabbed, and then, of course, Superintendent to get all the extra consumables. For consumables, grab all that you can. Spotting, especially spotting aircraft, this is very, very important. Get that extra charge. You will be using these basically every game. So you kind of need this to get yourself that competitive range. And it's a very, very important to grab the spotting plane. Grab the premium if you can. Repair is always good. Sonar is good. You can grab it. So sonar and AA, you don't usually get the choice between these two. So this definitely does have kind of this little bit of everything here. But still, though, I think one of the most important is the spotting plane. Very, very important. Upgrades, kind of basic here. Main armament, mod 1. AA range, so this is nice to grab here. AA range to get a little bit extra. Damage control system, and then steering gears. Now, if you guys do have it, spotting aircraft mod 1, I highly recommend on these ships because the range is so short compared to everything else. Getting that little extra of the... a lot of people play these kind of like the chase ships, so if a ship is chasing them, they angle away as much as they can, kind of chase away since they're relatively quick. They can go in and out of detection, and using that spotter plane to kind of do that. So if you have the modification for this, you can only really get them out of like super containers and stuff like that. So if you have it, definitely grab it. And I think this is a ship that's definitely worth using this on if you do have it. Let's jump into this gameplay and kind of show you how this ship plays compared to some other stuff. So here we are in game with the Abruzzi, and as you can see, the Italian ships are probably the best looking ships in this game so far. They did a really good job, and these are just really, really attractive ships for how cool they look. I think that all in all, these ships look really good. The Duca looks cool, the Caesar looks cool, and then of course the Abruzzi is keeping that basically a bigger Duca, and it does look very, very cool. But we're keeping that pattern of these low range cruisers. Of course the Caesar's a battleship, so it's a little different. But we are keeping kind of that low HE chance, relatively stealthy, low range cruiser, and it's kind of interesting because as we go up into the tiers, you're going to be basically just getting destroyed from stuff that you can't reach, and that's not the best thing you really want as a cruiser. So you have to play these things very, very carefully and be very, very, what's the right kind of thing, opportunistic, if you will. So as you can see, you can kind of be like a Sims, just launch some torps. You have that 12-kilometer range, but you do need to be careful. But you can also use your kind of a little bit of decent speed as well as your low detection to get into a good spot and kind of get into the right situation to really benefit, using a lot of environment and a lot of kind of things to block line of sight and help you out that way because you will just get outranged. So as you can see, even we can't reset Nagata yet, but we can get some shots on the Miyoko, and a destroyer is going to keep us a little detected. And I really kind of wanted to focus on the AP on this ship as well, since we can't really get the HE fire chance. We really want a lot of it. Like, that Shores, if I stay spotted, he could burn me down with never really reaching him. So, but we'll start working on that. And there's the destroyer, so we definitely want to be able to dunk on him as much as possible. So, but as you go with this ship, it's just super, super opportunistic. And of course, since this thing has like a ton of different things, I fat fingered the AA. So we're just gonna pop everything. Just hit all the buttons in the whole world. But with that range, though, you're gonna be getting with the spotter plane, you're gonna be getting a decent range. Like without the spotter plane, I wouldn't even be able to hit this guy. But with it, I can, and kind of just focus on him a lot. So trying to get over to this little area over here and kind of just post up and maybe start farming these battleships. But these destroyers are gonna make my life a little bit hell. But you're gonna do good damage. It's just getting in range enough to do damage to stuff without getting destroyed yourself. I guess that's going to be kind of the biggest thing. And that's always seems to be the situation with the Duca as well, tier 6. There are so many battleships, especially at this tier, and in my opinion, both of the ships kind of have a downside, and I wasn't quite sure what was detecting me. I mean, of course the Cleveland was, but I was hoping that guy would die and then I could just really post up here so I could stop shooting at him, which was the downside, even though we had some fires. So we got really lucky here. We got some amazing fire chance, and I was hoping that Cleveland would die so I could just kind of farm these guys without being spotted. But being aware of your surroundings with this ship and with these kinds of ship is going to be very, very important. Just playing it though, use both ammos. I think it's both are very rewarding. Both are going to work in the situations, and of course, always finish off the ships. That Cleveland, nobody else shot at it, so it feels bad, and of course, it survived and hasn't been killed. So you can only put so much trust in your team. So this thing is, to me, is I'm not sure. This is where this is when the plane goes down, and of course, if I had the module of the longer spotter plane on with this, it would have lasted a bit longer, so I could have kept doing damage. This is the awkward phase of this ship. So it's everything outranges me. The Miyoko outranges me. Its battleships, of course, outrange me. The Akatsuki's going to take a torque because he's sitting broadside in smoke. This is where you just kind of go, I wish there was something else with this ship, because right now I can't do anything. Do I engage this guy with these two other battleships? That Shores will just kind of murder me. So you kind of have to find that right situation and really kind of take advantage of things being, I don't know, things being close to some cover, close to some whatever. This is the problem with this ship, and I don't know, maybe giving it just a full-blown longer spotter plane, or just bumping it up a little bit range-wise, because for this, I have one thing to shoot at right now, and it's that Shores, and he's behind the island, or it's the Scharnhorst, so I get to do that. But you're really going to kind of lose some fights against a lot of ships. Now we get the Mahan coming up, but like the Miyoko, if he wanted to, could just absolutely destroy me, because I would just, if played right, I would just never reach him, especially Shores for how accurate it is at long range. I would just never, I would never reach it. So that's kind of the downside of the ship, and I think it's kind of one of the downfalls of this ship, is as you get closer to stuff, and especially as you up tier, although I think tier 7 matchmaking is very good and can be one of the most rewarding matchmaking tiers in the game right now, you're still going to get up tiered, and these Italian ships, especially the cruisers. When I say the Italian ships, I'm really talking about these cruisers, not so much the Caesar, but like the Duca and the Abruzzi really get punished by getting up tiered, just because they lack the range that a lot of other cruisers do. But man, I will give it props though. It does have a great rate of fire, and you can pump out a ton of damage. Like I said earlier, one of the fastest reloads outside of the Atlanta and the Flint at tier 7. So again though, they're out of range. I don't have my spotter plane up, so kind of just trying to find something and really kind of working the angles heading away from this. So trying to find anything that's in range and being aware of what I'm broadside to. It's going to be your biggest thing of just micromanaging that. But I think you can be pretty effective against certain stuff. You will be able to kind of work down some battleships. And of course, if you do get into a quote-unquote brawling situation with some other ships, I guess you could beat them because you do have that rate of fire. You do have the 2 turrets in the front, so you can pump out some damage, and that might be a little bit of a showcase piece on this. And again, the ship is work in progress, so they could change up a lot of stuff as we go. So far, 34,000 damage. It's basically our division against half their team, and if you can see on the other side of the map, it's it's a whole bunch of ships not going anywhere except for the one that's going way YOLO. So it's basically us versus half of their team. So that's always fun. And we're just hoping something happens. But yeah, I mean, you're gonna kind of be playing behind a little bit in this. If I was ashores, like right now, I remember even saying, I think in chat at this point in the game, I was like, man, I wish I was the shores, because you're getting all these shatters and stuff like that, and even with the shatters, you can potentially get some fire chances and stuff like that. And I was kind of wishing that I was the shores at this point, because I could just get some distance, get some range, and just absolutely punish these guys. But we'll start getting some good, good Italian AP on this guy, and just start punishing him right here. So that is good. Now, again, we don't have the Duca, the tier 6 AP, which is kind of these lasers, but you do have some decent AP, especially since they're still 152s and can do a lot of damage. But you are definitely gonna have some trouble though against other stuff that just straight up outranges you. And I wish I kind of had Duca AP right here, because I probably would have destroyed this Miyoko a little bit more than I actually did right here. I think I snagged him a little bit, but nothing too crazy. Yeah, I mean, I don't think even get too much. But our battleship does, luckily, and hopefully that. So a little bit more lofty on the AP as well, so kind of a little bit of a bummer. 41k so far, and it would have just been a game where I think I would have been able to do a lot more if I was in different ships. We end up getting a decent amount of damage from, I mean, throughout this game, but it was just kind of meh. It was, you know, there wasn't anything too crazy. If you know, outside of just a couple ships at tier 7, it would have been a lot more effective. One thing is, on the upside though, it is a premium ship. Of course, we snagged that kill right there, which is good. And as long as we survive this, we'll hopefully have a decent little chance here. But time to work this Iron Duke down. And this is when I was trying to figure out how good the AP was. You know, will it just be kind of, since the Iron Duke is a tier 5, will it be able to kind of work him down on the secondary, or on the superstructure and the upper armor belt as well, since these guys are. And then once I started getting some salvos, we just needed to light him up. So what I was trying to do here is get that fire, get him to repair, and then maybe hit him with a torque. Especially with my Scharnhorst right there too, if he can maybe get some secondary hits and stuff like that. So we did snag a little friend behind us, and honestly I had good RNG when it came to fires, which was kind of nice, and we kind of got gifted a little bit some extra damage from this guy. So, and again, I will give it props, it does have good reload. It's just getting in range to be able to use that reload, which is going to be the sketchy problem with this ship, but it is still very doable. Like right here, I think we would have been able to, you know, I don't know the exact math, but I think we would have been able to do a bit more damage here if we had rocked something like the Shores, or even something like the Belfast. Something just with just purely AP, and I'm like taking in the smoke or something like that. But just something more, I guess, a lower trajectory and stuff like that would have been a little bit nice right here. It just would have been a bit more punishing. Like, especially like even like a Fiji would have been pretty insane right here. But we are getting some good chunks out of this guy, and being relatively maneuverable, you can kind of wiggle a little bit and take less damage. But here we go. I mean, like right here, this is kind of the perfect example of something we should have absolutely shredded if we were in the majority of ships. We have the little bit of a lofty shell right here. We get in with a decent salvo, but if I'm in a couple other ships, that Shores is completely just ripped, because we have to kind of, the arc is a little high. So, you know, anything else, any other cruiser, I think he would have been dead right here, especially anything with 203s would have just absolutely sloshed him, or even like the Shores or something like that. So we did snag a Citadel right there, but I think we have some trouble here, and I think our Scharnhorst comes in with a decent hit, kind of take him down. And so this took me a little bit longer than I was expecting to get this kill. But as you can see, we're up to almost 75k damage. One Citadel so far, 1 kill, 8 fires, um, a bunch of base defense, bunch of all that kind of stuff. I think our Scharnhorst snags him right here. It almost does. So we'll hopefully slowly work him down. And but we're bringing this game back. If you guys have been watching the scoreboard a little bit, our team on the other side has basically slowly kind of won this back a little bit, and and they've kind of held on and got some okay trades, but nothing too crazy. So all right, well, we're gonna go back and work on this Iron Duke. So but this ship for me is going to be very middle of the road when it comes to tier 7 cruisers. One good thing is I find it, I guess, a little bit unique to play. You do have some extra things, like you do have sonar and you do have AA. You do have kind of all this stuff that is kind of nice, and being able to kind of work a whole bunch of angles of being a multiple role ship is kind of nice, and it's something you don't really see too much at this tier. I mean, look, there's a pretty good salvo right there, almost 4K on the superstructure, so it is pretty nice. This ship is, though, in a lot of situations, especially getting up tiers, is going to be very reliant on the spotter plane. So again, rolling that module is going to be very, very important. And there's a nice little double fire, so we will take down this Iron Duke as well. And then I'm gonna start getting a little bit aggressive. Scharnhorst takes him down on these guys. That Nagato hasn't really done too much, and his aim hasn't been crazy good, so I figured I could get very aggressive here. And if we take down that Shores, maybe I could get a YOLO play on this guy and just start pumping in some damage. I was hoping maybe to snag this, and as well as stop the caps. We can relieve those points. So luckily, our side held, which was amazing, and we were able to then just kind of focus on it. And can I snag the Shores right here? That's going to be the question. So the shot is in, and I noticed also that the dispersion was kind of here, there a little bit for consistency, but all in all, though, I felt like the dispersion was all right. So down goes the Shores, which is nice, and this Nagato. We're just gonna see. This is one thing too. I wanted to test it to see how good the dispersion will work. So instantly, I threw my ship in reverse because the Nagato, if you guys have ever played it, can be very, very hit and miss with its accuracy. So I was hoping to maybe do a little bit of damage and just keep distance. But I mean, we're gonna start shredding this guy with AP at this range, which you kind of could have done with really anything. But I really want to see this. You know, this is what the Italian line has kind of been known for, cruiser-wise. Of course, dropping some nice salvos right there. This is where I was a little bit impressed with this ship, since it's kind of known for this extra damage, and this is gonna be a good salvo by him. So we're down a little bit, 7,400. He snags us with the Citadel, but he is gonna donate some more damage to us as we cracked the 100K, which was definitely good. And so I kind of just gambled right here. I was thinking maybe if I can just keep pumping out damage. I wanted to keep all my guns on him. We have about a 30-second window to pump out 4 salvos if we can on this guy. So if we do any damage, it'll be good. And 3 more salvos of that right there with anything else from our team will be kind of like a win. And all I need to do is survive this salvo, and we'll get out of this game alive. And I got very lucky, as you can see. 627 life with the Abruzzi. So we were able to kind of do that. He stayed behind the island, so he was not able to spot me. So we will be able to kind of cap this out and finish this up right here. But all in all, this ship right now it kind of reminds me of the Duca D'Aosta at tier 6, and that is, I was kind of left wanting something a little bit more, but the ship is what it is, and it's, you know, if this is going to be the pattern of this line of being a semi-stealthy, high rate of fire, low range cruiser, I feel like this line, if they change up some stuff, it has the potential of being a very, very good line, a very, very competitive line, and potentially a very, very strong line if they change some values. You know, if they add a little bit of range, is it going to be too strong? If they add, you know, something else, alpha damage is going to be too strong. So right now, this ship is kind of middle of the road for me. There were many situations where I wish I was in other ships, and but all in all, I think this is a little bit better personally. I enjoyed the ship more than the Duca. Is it going to be the most competitive tier 7 cruiser? I'm not sure, but it could also be a very interesting, unique kind of playstyle, which could find its kind of niche when it comes, which I think the Duca D'Aosta has with World of Warships. So right now, like I said, this is still work in progress, so it's subject to change. It could easily change at any moment, and some values can change, and this ship could be very much top tier. I find it middle of the road right now for tier 7 cruisers. It kind of does decent at a lot of things, but I could see this thing really getting punished. We got lucky and we're top tiered that game. I could see this thing getting being very matchmaking matchmaking reliant for its success as it goes higher into tiers. The low range is really going to affect you, and the bigger open maps are really going to be kind of a problem for this ship, just because you do not have that range. So stealth, low range, decent rate of fire, low fire chance, goods, some bads, some uglies with this ship. Actually, it's not ugly at all. This ship is gorgeous. So that is it for me, guys. The Abruzzi, the tier 7, the Italian cruiser, again, work in progress, so subject to change. But let me know in the comments what you guys kind of think of this gameplay. I know the Duca has a very passionate player base. I always find that kind of funny when I talk about the Duca. So maybe I'll be a little nicer to that ship. But the Abruzzi, its older brother at tier 7, it's interesting. I'm interested to see what they do with this ship and if they release it like this. But that is it for me, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of the Italian cruisers so far. And that is it for me. Remember, like, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.